I'm gonna be round my vegetables. I'm gonna chow down my vegetables. I love you most of all, my favorite vegetable.
The dude has received many requests from viewers to see his worm farm operation. So I'd like to show you how this works. It's certainly one of the best ways you can get rid of garbage, cut down on stuff going in the landfill, as well as providing incredibly nutritious food for all of your plants. So let me demonstrate for you how it works. So here you can see where I have two worm farms right next to each other. My wife and I find that we produce enough good garbage to keep two worm farms going. So the way it works is I take one out when I'm going to give him some new garbage. I'll take the lid off. One of the cardinal rules of worm farming is whenever you open the lid to your worm farm, always be sure your mouth is closed, because there's lots of Drosophila that grow in there and they're fine, they don't hurt anything. And then you dump your garbage into it. And this is of course what I use to collect the trimmings and things when I'm cooking. And then let's see if we can get a good close-up here. Okay, here is the garbage that I've just dumped. Usually I'll just leave it on top and the worms crawl up and they're attracted to it and they crawl around and eat it and digest it. So you can see, if I dig it up a little bit, careful not to kill any of the little babies, you can see them all throughout the worm casings there, happily munching away on garbage, creating, among other things, the worm casings and worm tea. Let's go in there for a real good close-up. I know everybody loves to look at close-ups of garbage. So there you go. Garbage being delightfully munched by all of my pets here. By the way, it's really nice to have about 2,000 pets. I don't name them, but they are awfully cute. They love coffee grounds more than anything, because the coffee grounds, of course, get them all amped up. And there's nothing like a whole bunch, 2,000 amped up worms all wiggling around eating your garbage. And once this bin is filled with worm casings, then you can put another bin on top of it, and then when you put garbage on the grate on the bottom, the worms will come up through, and pretty soon they'll all be up in the top one. At that point you can take off the bottom one and harvest it. And next door they're also very busy. Now, one other important part of the whole complex here is and this of course is where you can harvest the worm tea. Some people call it worm pea, but basically there's a lot of moisture that the worms release as they munch all that garbage, and it gets drained down to the bottom, and you can drain that out, and that tea is extremely nutritious. You can fit it out with some water that you preferably have let sit for a few days so the chlorine evaporates out of it, so it doesn't hurt all of the beneficial microorganisms. And I usually dilute it about maybe with 75% pure water without chlorine in it. And then I pour that in all my plants, and the plants absolutely love it. They think it's about the best thing they've ever had, except for the worm casings and the compost. Speaking of compost, here are my two twin composters. I always like to have two of those going. And I got my first batch out last year. I was extremely pleased to see that I had made absolutely beautiful compost. Again, I put it on my plants, and they were much more disease resistant, much healthier than they had been the previous year. So the way this works is simply throw in stuff on the top. In this case, my fig tree is starting to lose its leaves, so I'm throwing nice dry fig leaves in there. I also have some of these, we were making our own wheatgrass juice. And now that this particular flat of wheatgrass has got its course, throw it in there. It makes really good compost. The trick on composting is you want to have brown stuff like dried leaves, cardboard, things like that, and then you want to have green stuff about it in equal proportions. And then I always throw in a little bit of worms and compost from the previous batch just to get the whole thing going. And then once you put them in there, about every couple days or so, you just spin it around, and that automatically mixes it all up. Very easy, it doesn't take much effort at all. And finally, the best part is for last here again. You can see down in the bottom of this composting bin this is the only composting bin that I'm aware of that actually collects the compost tea. So here is any of the moisture that drips down from the composting mixture, goes into that container on the bottom, and you can see where it has a cap that you can then drip out. I've built these little platforms here so that I can then put a bucket underneath it and just drain it into the bucket, and I have very nice compost tea that I can use before the compost is ready. So both the worm farms and the compost bins provide incredibly good nutrition and also make my homestead here quite a bit more efficient by having all these ways to get rid of otherwise useless garbage. I have my poor old earth flag, like our Mother Earth, has seen better days, has been abused, is kind of tattered and torn, and this probably is the best reason why we need to malama Mother Earth.
And we